Hello, everyone. Hello. And how are you all doing? I've got a special guest, very special guest, and we've got Godless Granny in the house.
Hello, everyone.
Please let us know if you can hear us okay. Please let me know if you can hear me okay. Um, hey, Mark. Hello, hello, hello. Sam, hello. Apostle David E. Taylor, full frontal exposure. I love that name. Full frontal exposure. He needs exposing. Coming through great. Right. Oh, Michaela. Hello, Michaela. Hello, everyone. Yes. So we've got Godless Granny. And this is a conversation I've been looking forward to. And when I asked Godless Granny, would you like to be on my show to come and talk about um, living Christianity? She immediately said yes. She was really very good, and it was a lovely conversation. So yes, hey Titan Uranus, hello. So some of you know already that I am an ex-Christian, made my way out of Christianity about 2.5 years ago, and came out as an atheist, and I'm living life without a religion. And I'm out, and I am proud. And along the way, I have met people that have been inspirational and are helping me through the course of living Christianity. Because living Christianity is not living religion as a whole, is a very huge deal. It is a big deal. And so I will let Godless Granny introduce herself to you all. So, Godless Granny, do you want to introduce yourself to us?
Certainly. I'm Godless Granny. I have a YouTube channel by that name. I have not been an atheist for very long. I have a very meandering journey as far as faith goes because I was Catholic, then I was agnostic, and then I was Protestant, and now I am atheist. I suppose maybe I should try Buddhist or Hinduism just for a week or two, just so I can try them all. Um, um, and as soon as I came, I've always been very adamant about what I believe. And so when I was a believer, I was very um, vocal about my faith. I would talk about it to anyone. And so when people ask me, well, why are you so vocal about atheism? I said, I'm not any more vocal about atheism than I was about Christianity when I was a Christian.
Yes, absolutely. And you see, I've seen Christians on the street. They're out there, proclaiming the gospel. They shout on top of the mountains if they can. Not that I've seen anybody on top of a mountain, but when you go to the store, they're there. You go. There was a video of somebody on a plane. On a plane, Godless Granny. This person
Mhm.
was on a plane preaching the gospel, and and somehow it's okay, somehow
Mhm.
it is acceptable.
Mhm.
But if you're a non-believer, for some reason they want you to just go away,
Mhm.
go away and just don't say anything at all. We don't want to hear what you have to say. Do you find that is that something that you have noticed yourself?
Oh, absolutely. I get I do a lot of arguing on Twitter. I like to argue with people on Twitter. For
Oh
one thing, it
yes,
really sharpens my arguments. I've made some dumb arguments on Twitter before, and when someone will expose, I realize, oh, that one was pretty dumb. Um, but that helps me in the videos that I do. I know not to use that one in a video. Oh, thank you, Apostle David E. Taylor, for subbing to me. I appreciate that.
he's doing fantastic work himself. He's out there exposing this scammers. Well, this particular, just one particular charlatan who claims to hear from God and he's not a very nice person at all. He's not a nice person, and people like that deserve to they deserve to be called out, because they're taking advantage of people, and I appreciate the work that he's doing. So, Godless Granny, you're here now, and I want to tell people how I came across Godless Granny for the very first time. When I was making my way out of the religion, when I started questioning my beliefs, asking, why do I believe what I believe? What's the reason why I believe? And is there sufficient evidence to carry on believing? So I was on YouTube. I was on YouTube a lot. I was watching videos. I was, watching debates. I was, oh goodness, YouTube was very instrumental in awakening me. And so I came across a video. One of the people that I was watching is Matt Dillahunty. And I would type on YouTube Matt Dillahunty, just anything Matt Dillahunty was doing, I was interested. I need to see and just watch the kind of conversations he has. And so I saw a video. It was a conversation. He was DragCon.
DragonCon.
DragonCon. Yes,
yeah.
it was DragonCon.
It's a huge event in Atlanta, Georgia, that attracts people who are interested in comic books and anime, and people dress up as characters, and there's merchants there selling stuff. And yeah, that's DragonCon is a huge event.
Right. And so I saw this video. I'm going to play that video, Godless Granny, okay? So that I saw this video and I saw this lady, and she had an interesting little chat with Matt Dillahunty on video. And the question that you asked was very, at that point in my life, I was asking the same questions as yourself. And so this was the very first time I ever saw you. And so I'm going to show people the video. 1 second. Let's see. Let's have a look. I hope it works. Sometimes, let's see. Okay, here we go. Right. So
they sort of impressed me by the fact that they never attempted to. They knew that I was an atheist. They never attempted to convert me or press their opinions on me. But I've seen a lot of people online that are just all like, and we would go to their church services just out of courtesy.
Can you
That's
guys?
my son down in the corner there, in the red cape, right on the end, right next to that guy.
Red cape? Where? Which one? Where? In the red cape.
Right.
Where?
And the hat with the horns on it.
Over here?
Down
no,
lower.
I can't. Down lower.
Down
here.
lower. There. Yes,
here.
That's my son.
Oh wow!
It's before he transitioned.
Oh wow! Okay, so of course that's you right there. And this was a question. So it was Ask an Atheist Live, Matt Dillahunty. And so you came along to ask Matt a question. And at this time, I was questioning. I was, asking the hard questions. Why do I believe what I believe? Is there reason to carry on believing that Jesus died and he rose and all these things? And so I come across this video, and I'm going to play it and hope that people can hear the question that you asked.
I guess, you get invited and you go and
I
you
hope people can
do
hear.
things. I guess they're kind of Pentecostal, but
That's the first time I've ever heard those two words together.
yeah.
Let me see if I can take this forward.
It's unusual. Like,
this, let's see. Just 1 second. I'm trying to. Oh, there we go. There we go. There we go. Yes.
I was a Christian until a couple of weeks ago.
A couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
Wow.
Vice Rhino, Apologia, and Aaron Ra are responsible for that change. My field of study is law. I have not taken a science class since 1979. And so when I listen to some of this stuff, I do not have the science background to understand it. What can I read to build my science background?
It's going to depend on specifically what area you're looking at. A lot of times people ask me what they should read, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, what do I say? There are books that I frequently recommend, although the most recommended book of mine has nothing to do strictly with science. It's a book called Innumeracy by John Allen Paulos, and it will fundamentally change the way you think about things.
And I did
if you're
read
not,
that.
If you're
Did
not
you?
especially dead set on reading,
I bought it and I read it.
Oh, wow.
I
Nice.
always recommend 2 video series from James Burke, which you probably have to buy on DVD. One of them is called Connections, and the other one is The Day the Universe Changed.
Oh, yeah. I know that one.
Don't take this the wrong way, but you may be able to just go in and audit local college courses on science. And if you're looking for like a general understanding, there's tons of skeptic websites and resources. Even Wikipedia is not bad to start. Just when you get to the bottom of the article and there's all the references, go dig through those references. I don't have a good recommendation for an intro. Anybody have a good recommendation for an intro to science book? Yes.
Cosmos is a good.
Sure. Yeah. Yes, that's sciencey. I wish I had a better recommendation for it. I tell you what you can do. You can email me. My regular email address is sans.deity@gmail.com, or you can email president@atheist-community.org, at least for a little while. And I'll ask around, and if you have a specific area you're looking at, I will make phone calls. And I know you're new to all this, so
you are new to all this.
if you want,
yes.
I'll even ask Dawkins if he's got a intro to science book, but I'm pretty sure his answer is not going to be as intro as we might want. But yeah.
The God delusion.
Thanks,
Someone
and welcome
said
back to
the God.
reality.
Yes, welcome back to reality. Yes.
Secular morality. Go.
Okay, that's it.
And
That's
yes,
it.
Dr. Osiris, that was me.
Yes, that was
me
the
2 years ago.
the very first time I saw you, and when I was watching that, I was asking, I was wondering what happened to that woman. She asked that question. She has just come out of Christianity. Whatever happened to that woman? And so I just carried on watching my videos and, doing what I would, and eventually I made my way out. And I decided, as part of my deconversion, and yes, someone else asked the question, may I share my channel here? Yes, you can. Yes, please do. Please do. Absolutely. Okay, so when I saw that, I just wondered what happened with you. And I'm not sure what happened. I think I was online, and YouTube will recommend videos to you, and your channel was recommended to me. And at that time, anybody who has a godless, when you have godless in front of your name, that's it. I'm subbing to you. I'm just I was just subbing to everybody. Anybody that had godless in front of their name, I was subscribing. And I must have come in your live stream and overheard you speaking, and it was something that you said, and automatically I said, oh, that's that woman, that's her. And I've been following you since. I've been an avid follower, and I have enjoyed every minute of it.
Thank you
And
very
so
much. I'm a follower of yours as well, and I enjoy your content as well.
thank you very much. And I'm glad that you're on YouTube. I'm glad that you didn't stop at asking those questions at DragonCon. I'm glad that you are representing for atheists. The whole reason why I started the channel was to be some form of representation, because sometimes people are making their way out and they want to see people that look like them, that think like them, are in the same place as them, right? So I want to say thank you for being out here and doing what you do. And so we come to the point where I ask you to tell us your deconversion story.
Okay. When I tell this story, it changes a little bit each time. If you watch the original video that I did, why I walked away from 42 years of faith, it does tell you my story. And then the second time I told my story was on Neil's channel, Neil the 604 Atheist. But listening to other people's stories and listening to some of the things that affected them, it suddenly clicks with me that even though that wasn't the moment where my faith completely broke, there were a lot of moments leading up to it that are also part of the story as well, that caused some of those things. And here's what I'm talking about. One of the things that, my political views changed considerably long before I left the faith. I was at one time a young earth creationist. And it was Ken Ham that actually took me away from young earth creationism. And partly because, what my kids brought home a video from school by Ken Ham, in which he tells the kids, when your teacher tells you that this happened millions of years ago, you should ask your teacher, were you there? And I thought, how rude. Why are you teaching school children to be rude to their teachers? Someone could just as easily make the same argument to their Bible teacher and say, when they hear Noah and the flood, well, were you there? Well, no, of course not, and so I think, what a stupid argument. And so that made me realize just how dumb Cam and Ham was, and all of the arguments that he had. We changed churches around that time, and the new church I was going to, the pastor was not a young earth creationist. And so when I listened to his arguments for, obviously, evolution, the proof of it was definitely there. And so I started believing in it, although I didn't really do any research into it, because it really didn't affect me in my everyday life. I'm not in a science field, and I really didn't have anything to do with it. I just realized, okay, yeah, I guess that's right. And then just kind of left it at that. The next thing that really affected me was my middle child, my second daughter. When she was in high school, 3 girls in her graduating class became pregnant. Now, my kids all went to a private Christian school. So we're talking a class of 50. There's only 25 girls in the class, and 3 of them got pregnant. Now, one of them got pregnant and discovered her pregnancy between her sophomore and junior year. So she was able to withdraw from school quietly, and nobody knew about it except her closest friends. And I only knew about it because my daughter was one of her closest friends. But there were two other girls that got pregnant in their senior year, and they were both expelled from school. And one of the girls, her boyfriend, also went to the school, and he was expelled as well. And I just got to thinking, Christianity is supposed to be about forgiveness. It's supposed to be all about, if you sin, you can come and you can confess your sin and you can be forgiven. And all of these girls and this one boy that were expelled from school went off to the public school. And I'm wondering, why does the Christian community that's supposed to be all about love and forgiveness tell these girls, you are not acceptable in our community, but the secular community says you are forgiven and you are welcome here? That was one of the things that started to turn my mind, even though it didn't, my faith wasn't broken at that point, but that was one of the first cracks. Some of the major cracks came as Donald Trump rose to power. And it didn't have anything directly to do with Donald Trump, but it had to do with what I saw going on in the Christian community as a result of his rise to power. People became much bolder about expressing ideas that they would not have otherwise. And a lot of the things that they were expressing were things that I thought were completely contrary to the teaching of the Christian church. Prime example, in a Sunday school class, one of the guys was bragging about how, we don't have to be politically correct. We can say whatever we want to say. And if somebody doesn't like it, too bad for them. And this was a Baptist church where every Sunday the pastor said something about, make sure you are telling everyone about your faith. And I'm thinking, if you really want to share your faith and tell other people about your faith, then you've got to do it in terms that they're not going to find offensive. I mean, if you come up to, forgive me if there's any, Mexicans in the audience, but if you come up to someone and say, hey, Spick, let me tell you about Jesus, they're probably going to, if they don't hit you, they're certainly going to walk away. It's not going to attract them to some kind of faith. And so I'm thinking Christians should be the first people in line asking, what are the politically correct terms that we can use so that we can reach out to people who are not looking like us with our gospel message? And so I saw that major inconsistency there. And so that was another crack. Another crack came when something along similar lines. Our pastor was preaching about, how we need to be sharing our faith with other people. And in that same sermon, he was ridiculing people who don't come to church every Sunday. And I'm thinking, how can I reach out to somebody and invite them as an unbeliever to come and sit in this church with me if you're going to get up on that stage and ridicule them for not being in church every Sunday? And so I went and had a talk with a woman who was on staff with the church. This was a very large church. And so I was attending a satellite church. I didn't go to the main campus. So I didn't even know the pastor. In the 2 years I went to that church, I met him all of twice. So that's why I went to this other woman who was on staff rather than the pastor himself. And I said this to her, and she said, yeah, I have the same problem. I realized I cannot bring visitors to this church because the pastor might offend them. And I'm thinking, wow, what does that say about your church if you can't bring visitors because the pastor might ridicule your visitors? And so I did ask her, well, what are you doing here then? And she said, well, I just really feel called of God to be working with the children here. Okay, well, whatever. So, we left that church and went and found another church. It wasn't like that completely broke my faith. The thing that really the biggest crack though came when I started reflecting on the story of the Apostle Paul.
Mhm.
And I started thinking about people who go to hell. Christianity teaches you that believers go to heaven and unbelievers go to hell. And that God is omniscient, he knows everything. And I'm thinking, if God knows everything and he knows exactly what everyone needs to know in order to be able to believe in him, why doesn't he just do that for them? If God can make a personal appearance to the Apostle Paul and say, here I am, I'm God, why can't he do that for everyone?
Yes.
And most people would say, well, because you're not the Apostle Paul, God doesn't have plans for you. Okay, but do his plans not include me going to heaven? I mean, if his plans include me going to heaven and he knows what I need to know in order to go to heaven, why isn't he telling me that? And that's where the major crack in my faith came, because that's when I kind of left Christianity but went to making up my own theology. And the theology that I came up with at that point was everyone is going to heaven. Everyone is going to be saved. Some people will believe on earth, and some people will die and appear before God. And when they get there, then God's going to tell them everything about himself and then give them now that you know who I am and what I'm all about, would you like to join me in heaven? And I was taking that as the real meaning behind every knee shall bow and every tongue shall confess that Jesus is Lord, that once they come before him and learn everything about them, then they will make a choice. And that made a lot more sense to me. Let me get to Mark Caesar's question and then I'll come back to the story. Let's see. Did it ever strike me as odd that you can church shop? Yes and no. I did go to a lot of different churches, but part of that was because I was a military wife. And so we were moving from city to city every few years. And even when you do that, there are some denominations that are regional. When I first came to faith, I was going to an evangelical free church. And evangelical free churches are only located in the Northwest. So when we got stationed in Texas, there were no evangelical free churches there. So I started going to a Baptist church, which has very similar beliefs. There's some differences, but it's the theology is pretty much the same. And I actually got involved with a couple other people who had been E-free as well. And so we actually started an E-free church. That's another whole nother story for another day.
Did you say E-free church?
Yeah, evangelical free.
Oh, evangelical free. Okay.
Right. We called it E-free for short.
E-free. Oh, right.
Mhm.
Right.
So anyway, once I adjusted my theology to that point, I started feeling a little awkward in church because I'm going to church with believers who are reading the same Bible and worshiping the same God as me, but my beliefs don't really line up with their beliefs. But the straw that broke the camel's back was when my son came to me and said, Mom, Noah's flood didn't happen. Well, how do you know it didn't happen? And he said, because the methane gas on the ark would have killed all the animals. I said, okay. But I just left it that until my son left the room. And then when I'm alone where he can't see me checking up, then I Googled it. I found about 8 different articles that all agreed with him.
Oh, wow.
I think he might be right on this one. So I mentioned that to him, and that's when he showed me Aaron Ra's videos on Noah's Ark. And that's what led to the question to Matt Dillahunty is I did get some stuff out of Aaron Ra's videos, but some of the vocabulary that he was using, I couldn't understand because I didn't have the science background to understand what he was talking about. I didn't know what a clade was. I didn't know what a eukaryote was. I didn't know what taxonomy was. I'm having to look up all these words and I can't understand what he's saying because the vocabulary is beyond me. And so my son introduced me to Vice Rhino and Apologia. Apologia was much more my speed. He talks a little bit
mhm.
slower, and he uses vocabulary that someone that doesn't have a science degree can understand. After that conversation with Matt Dillahunty, one of the things that I did was going back and watching R and Raw and just keep looking the words up over and over. And eventually, after watching an R and Raw video about 3 or 4 times, once I started getting the vocabulary, then I could understand it. But the big moment, the one that completely broke my faith, was when I heard R and Raw say that there are civilizations that we know of from history that did not die in a global flood. And that was I have always known this because I have studied history. I just never took the history that I know of the ancient world and put it together with my faith to realize that the two of them don't mesh. And so, everybody accuses me of deconverting over science. Science had nothing to do with it. It was history.
Excellent. Oh, wow.
And since then, I've discovered,
History.
for me, I was thinking only in terms of China because I knew more about ancient Chinese history than other ancient civilizations. But since then, I've discovered there were a lot of ancient civilizations that somehow managed to not even notice this global flood that was supposed to have wiped them from the earth. And that was the straw that broke the camel's back. That was how I completely deconverted. And the reason, and I've also had a couple of people ask me, well, why would that cause you to deconvert just because Noah's flood didn't happen? And here's why.
Mm.
Because my entire faith was built on the inerrancy of the Bible. And I was very aware that that was the foundation of my faith for a couple of reasons. Number one, I had been trying to talk my parents into converting to Christianity for 30 years. And the stumbling block that I ran into constantly was I kept trying to argue about the Bible, but my parents didn't believe the Bible. And so I was always trying to find some kind of an argument that didn't use the Bible to prove that Christianity was right. And I couldn't do it. I knew that my faith was based entirely on the Bible. The second reason is because when you go through really painful experiences, sometimes that can, some people will deconvert over that, but other things will cause you to just re-examine. And in 1984, my first child was stillborn. And when I had a stillborn child, I really reflected on my faith. I went through a period of time when I felt like there was this physical barrier, a wall between me and God. And when I would pray, I felt like my prayers were hitting this brick wall and they weren't going anywhere. And I went and talked to my pastor about it. And basically, my pastor told me to pray about it. And I thought, wow, gee, that sure helped. But I realized at that point, what do I have to hang on to? What is real? And at that point, I said to myself, the Bible is real. The Bible is the word of God. And I trust that regardless of this situation, that God is good. And that even though I don't understand what's going on, I trust that God is good because the Bible tells me it's good. And so I was very aware that the Bible was the foundation of my faith.
Hmm.
And so once it was proved to me that the Bible was not without error, it wasn't inerrant, the Bible was no longer the word of an omniscient God. How could an omniscient God give us his perfect word and it had errors in it? So if the Bible isn't the word of God, I no longer have a foundation for my faith. I no longer have a reason to believe. And once there was no reason to believe, I stopped believing.
Woohoo! You see, I like the process.
Mm-hmm.
It starts by questioning. It just starts with just one thing can start the ball rolling, and you start to ask the hard questions. And once you start on that journey, you have to be honest with yourself. You have to take off the religious lens.
Mm-hmm.
You've got to take that off. If you're going to be skeptical, if you're going to be truthful, you've got to take that religious lens off. Because when you start to look at the Bible stories, okay, no, let me ask you the question, and I will tell you how I felt. When I was a Christian, I could tell that the God of the Old Testament was a monster. It was obvious from reading the Old Testament that the Old Testament God was a monster. But you just had to believe it. You had to accept that part of the Bible, because the New Testament comes along and makes things better. Jesus came along and made things better. But when I finally deconverted, for some reason, I can't look at those Bible stories the way I looked at them as a Christian. They all just, whatever pieces they were trying to put together. When I open the Bible now from page 1, I already see the errors. I see the contradictions. I see you see it. For some reason, they just come alive. And there are days when I get so angry. I'm asking myself, how did I once believe these things? How did these things make sense to me? And about the Noah's flood, the flood, whether it happened or it didn't happen, for me, what did it for me was I thought about it. I read the scripture again and realized Noah was 600 years old. That's what the scripture says. He was 600 years old. And Noah and his family made it into the ark. But not one baby made it. One infant, one pregnant woman didn't make it. One, and the questions that I started to ask, why would babies die and a 600-year-old man be kept alive? It didn't make sense to me. In my mind, I was thinking, at least one baby should have at least made it into the ark. 2 babies, 3 babies, but none. God just wiped all the babies.
They're evil babies.
They're evil. And so I asked a believer, I asked them, why did babies not make it into the ark? And I have heard some very ridiculous answers. One person has said to me, they believe in reincarnation, and they believe that in those babies, their previous lives, they must have been evil in their previous lives. So
well,
when they
considering
came in this life, sorry?
When there were only about 6 generations of humans on the face of the earth at the time of the flood, when could they have had a previous life? Methuselah, Adam's grandson, Methuselah, was still alive when the flood happened.
That was the answer somebody gave me. And someone else said, they said that was the beginning. That part of the Bible was the beginning of the sins of the fathers being visited on the children. And
but
I asked them
another Bible verse that says that you don't punish children for the sins of the father. It's funny. Yeah, that's one of the big contradictions of the Bible.
And when you start asking those questions, and if you only need to look in the Bible and you start to see how people who were not even guilty, who had nothing to do with the act that was committed, they're punished for things they had no knowledge of. Look at Adam and Eve. according to the Christian theology, humanity is flawed till this present day because Adam and Eve ate an
The
apple.
fruit. Yeah.
Well, fruit, apple. I grew up believing that it was an apple, Godless Granny. I grew up believing it was an apple. That's what we were taught in Sunday school. We were taught that it was an apple.
I think Matt Powell would say it's a banana.
Oh, oh my goodness. It's crazy. I mean, you only need to open the Bible, just take off the religious lens, and you start to see that these things don't make sense. Why do babies have to suffer for something they knew nothing about? You know,
that was one of the first things. Well, two of the biggest realizations I came to shortly after deconverting. One was looking at the natural world completely differently. The one thing that I worried about as a new atheist was, how can I go and enjoy nature now that I no longer look at it with the awe of knowing it was created by God? And when I went out for a walk for the first time as an atheist and I looked at the world around me, it was new. And I said, this all came about by a natural process. I don't need a God to tell me how awesome nature is. And that was a real aha moment as well, that I could enjoy the world around me without having to think that a God made it. The other thing that was a major difference was I suddenly started looking at Christianity from an outsider's perspective. I used to be a Calvinist, and how I absolutely detest Calvinists. I think they have the lowest form of Christianity there is, because they say, now, one thing I do commend Calvinists for, and that is they own the portions of their religion that are really horrendous. They will tell you outright that God made the choice before creation as to who would be saved and who would not be saved, and man has no choice in that whatsoever. They own that Adam ate the fruit because that was God's plan for him, because God wanted to demonstrate his justice, and he can't do that unless there was sin for him to judge. And for that, I commend them. But you end up with this horrid God that creates billions of people for no purpose other than to condemn them to being his vessels of wrath. And how can you call someone a loving God that creates a few people to be his vessels of mercy and billions of people to be his vessels of wrath? That's why I do go after the Calvinists more than anyone else. And that's why I go after John Piper so much, because he's one of the most prominent Calvinist theologians of our day.
Right. John Piper, you say? Okay. Now, another question I wanted to ask you is, a lot of believers are afraid of going to hell. For a lot of people, the fear of going to hell will stop a lot of them from even doubting, from questioning, from making that move and saying enough. So my question is, did you have a fear of hell? And if you did, how did you overcome that fear? And why should anyone be afraid of going to hell? Why should anyone let that stop them?
I never really had a fear of hell. My mother did. My mother was raised in the Catholic Church and was threatened with hell many times. And my mother always found that a horrible way to try to train children. And so even though my very young upbringing was Catholic, My parents never talked about hell. They thought that was a horrible concept.
Mhm.
So hearing about hell, I really didn't hear about it until I was 16 when I learned about Christianity. So I didn't have that childhood indoctrination that some people have. Now, once I became a believer, a Christian, I did believe in hell, but I believed that I was saved from hell and I had nothing to worry about. And so I still didn't fear hell because I felt that, God had saved me and I didn't need to worry about it. When I stopped believing, I still don't fear hell because now I don't believe it exists. But since I never really feared it, it wasn't that big a deal to me.
Right. Listen, I when I hear that, these are the things that I hear that bother me a lot, because I grew up, I was about 6-7 years old when we'll be taken to church to go and watch the burning hell. I was introduced to the concept of hell as a young child and told that if you're not good, you're going to end up there. We were shown videos, we were shown literal, we saw how hell was going to look like. And I had a very strong fear of hell. So when I started questioning, I think that was the very last hurdle to cross, the fear of hell, and just realizing that it didn't exist. It was just made up by these people. I came across a reverend father who did not believe in hell, who didn't believe that God will create a place like that for children that he loves. And that blew me, it blew my mind that there are people there are Christians who do not believe in hell. And so I think that's one of the things that made me stop and ask, why do Christians preach different doctrines? Every church you go to, it's a different doctrine. Different countries, it's a different doctrine. And why so different? And then I realized that, cherry picking came as part of the territory. If you're a believer, you had to cherry pick. Otherwise, you only pick the portions of the Bible that you need for the moment. You open the Bible when you're sad, and you open the scriptures that talk about sadness, and pick those particular scriptures to fit your, how you're feeling at that time. And so, it just completely fell apart for me. Completely fell apart.
Now, I did not do that. I read the Bible in a systematic cover-to-cover way at least 5 times. I read my Bible almost daily. And so, sometimes I would go systematically cover to cover. Sometimes I would pick a book. Sometimes I would pick a topic. Most of the time I would do a book at a time and go verse by verse. But I knew my Bible inside out. I know the Bible very well.
Oh, wow. So you would be what they will define as a good Christian.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I was in church every time the doors were open. I went on mission trips. I sang in the choir. I served on church boards. I taught Sunday school. I taught women's Bible studies. I had in-home Bible studies. I did everything. I was never a pastor. That's the only thing that I never did. I was never a pastor, but I've done pretty much everything else that you could do in a church.
Wow. And so I think that brings me to my next question. And it is, how are you living life without religion? How are you how are you living a godless life? How are you really living religion free? Because I've been asked the question, where are you getting your morality these days, that now you don't read the Bible? Now you don't read the Bible. Where are you getting your morals from?
I
Someone
never
has
got
asked
my
me,
morals from the Bible in the first place.
how are you good without God? As if you
Hmm.
need God to be good. So, yeah, I think
Hmm.
I'll ask you, how are you living without religion? How are you living without God and Jesus and the Holy Spirit and all that, the Christian, the things they believe?
Hmm. My life hasn't changed much. I'm still married to my husband. We've been married for 38 years, and he is still a believer. Now,
Oh,
when we were believers, I was the one that was always pulling the train. I was always dragging him to this and that church event. So now that I'm no longer pulling the train, he's doing, he did ask me this question, gosh, probably 30 years ago, was why can't we just be pew sitters? His idea of being a Christian is you go into church, you watch the service, you go home, and that's it. And so that's what he's doing now that I'm not the one that's dragging him to every church activity there is. Um, I no longer pray before I eat. That was the biggest change for me because I never ate anything. Well, I would eat a snack, but I never ate a meal without praying first. And
wow.
for the first, oh gosh, 6 to 8 months that I was an unbeliever, I would start bowing my head and going, "Oh yeah, there's no one to pray to. There's nobody there." So that's a big difference. And of course, not going to church on Sunday anymore and not reading my
Mm.
Bible anymore. But I have substituted all the work that I used to do in the way of leading people to Christ by now trying to lead people away from Christ. And so all the work that I do in producing videos and putting together live streams, that's what I'm doing instead of teaching Sunday school.
Okay, I listen. The fact that your husband is still a believer, it's amazing. And you said something really important, and that is, not a lot has changed.
Hmm.
Nothing changes. Really, nothing changes. You're not out. Some people believe that when you become an atheist, you're automatically signed up to some kind of devil worship. You go
Mm.
somewhere to you go worship the devil,
And
but
we eat babies.
you eat babies and do what monsters do. But you know, nothing changes. You don't do any of that stuff, and I'm so glad to know that you can live your life as an unbeliever, but your husband is a believer, and you're not trying to convert him and trying to pass your message across. Oh, you must believe what I believe. You know, what do you say to that? Are you trying to are you out here trying to, like the Christians do, to convert people, or are you out here just to highlight what's wrong with the religion, or just, I don't
Hmm.
know if you know what I'm trying to
I
say.
do. I I I like to confront believers, asking them why they believe what they believe.
Mhm.
Um, because I've yet to find anyone who has a good reason. Most of the reasons are based on personal experience, and mine was too. The reason that I converted to Christianity in the first place was because of personal things that went on in my life that caused me to think that, oh, I need a God to help me out with my life. Um, I've yet to find anyone that has a good logical, um, intellectual reason to believe in Christianity.
Wow, that's interesting. So there have been two questions since the live stream. One person wanted to know, I think it was Mark. Mark wanted to know, yeah, Godless Granny, did you ever look through the Bible for references about hell? There is very little in the Bible about hell. It's a concept made up by religions. And someone else asked, what books did Matt recommend to you?
The big one that he recommended to me was Innumeracy, and I did buy a copy of that book and I did read it. They also recommended the Cosmos and the video series Cosmos, and I have watched a few of those as well. Unfortunately, when I had that conversation with him, I didn't realize that that was on YouTube, and I was writing it all down. And when I got back home a couple days later, I couldn't find the paper. And so I couldn't find all the notes of what I'd written down of what to read, but I did remember the Innumeracy, and I did get that book. But I've also been learning a lot along the way. In answer to Mark Caesar's question about hell, I don't know if I specifically looked for references on hell. Yeah, I believe I did. Some of the references to hell are very vague. You know, Jesus talked about the place where there will be the gnashing of teeth, where the worm will not die, and so yeah, you're right that religious groups kind of flesh out what hell is. Now, Revelation does talk about a lake of fire, and it does say that everyone whose name isn't written in the book of life will be thrown into the lake of fire. I've got something to share with you that I made.
Okay.
Let's see if I can find it. It's on my desktop somewhere because I've used it as a meme a couple times. I might have put it into a fan art folder. But anyway, one of my favorite things to say to believers is that I have hacked the book of life, and I put everyone in there.
Godless Granny, put my name in that book.
I don't need to because I've already put everyone in that book.
Oh, thank you. So I hope everyone heard that. Your names are in the book of life. Yay. Godless Granny, did you see I saw an article recently. The Pope said atheists are going to heaven. Did you see it?
No, I did not see that one.
Oh, the Pope says atheists will go to heaven.
Okay.
As if
I didn't, I heard something about that. Didn't he backtrack on that later, though?
I don't know. I don't know. I'm not. I was never Catholic, and when I was growing up, we were told that the Catholic was the devil's church. That the Catholic Church was the devil's church, and that the Pope was the Antichrist. We were taught that the Pope is the Antichrist. So
yeah,
anything the Catholics did or said or just never resonated with me, because that was the Antichrist and that was the devil's church. And, when I look back now, I start to ask myself, why would they tell us that? Why would they tell us these kind of things? I don't know.
I read a track as a teenager where they said that the Pope was the Antichrist. But I also was told that Ronald Reagan was the Antichrist because his name, Ronald Wilson Reagan, there's 6 letters in each part of his name, 666. Obama was the Antichrist.
Gosh.
Let's see who else. There were just so many stories about this is the Antichrist and that's the Antichrist, and I even as a believer, I gave up on those things because there were. I was leading a women's Bible study, and one of the women in my Bible study was saying, "Oh, you know, are you really prepared for the end times?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm prepared." And she said, "Well, what have you done? Do you have, you know, canned goods stored up? And do you have?" I said, "No, I'm a believer. That's all I need. God will take care of me. That's all I need."
Oh goodness. Have you this is something that I've noticed, that believers are very scared. They're very scared people. They're very scared of, you know, the unknown. They I if you're a believer and you believe that Jesus Christ or whatever God you call on is going to save you, why are you so scared? Scared of, oh, the Antichrist is coming, you know, scared of taking vaccines. They're so scared. And that's something I cannot understand, why they're so petrified.
I finally found it.
Oh, good.
There. There
Right.
you go.
So what do I do? Do I add to stream? Okay. There
Yeah,
we
just
go.
hit add to stream. There. See? I've hacked the
Wait,
book of
hang on.
life. I
Take
put
off.
everyone in it.
Let me take off this comment. Okay. So it's so, oh, so that's the book of life.
Right, that's the book of life. And I put everyone in there. So now everyone's in the book of life.
Hey. Oh my goodness. So, Godless Granny, another important question I need to ask you is heaven, about heaven. What are your thoughts about heaven? I, right now, when I think about heaven, I don't think nice thoughts about heaven. When I was growing up, going to church, we were taught that for every soul you brought into the kingdom, so every soul that you converted, you were going to get a mansion and a crown. So if you won 10 souls, you would have 10 mansions in heaven. If you won the 10 souls, you had 10, I'm not sure whether they were pearls or crowns, I'm not sure what it was. But they made heaven look like this place that you didn't want to miss. But now when I look at what heaven is going to be all about, I don't think of it as a place that anybody should be happy to go to. How can you be happy to go to heaven knowing that family members are going to be in hell? And all you would do in this place is to worship morning, noon, night. Hail, hail, hail God, hail. I've even heard, I've heard a preacher, there's a preacher on YouTube. I heard him say that when you get to heaven, you're going to go to work. Don't think when you go to heaven, you're just going to, that's the end of working, that you will be assigned jobs. So your job doesn't end here. You're going to go to heaven and you will be assigned jobs to do in heaven. And, you know, just thinking about heaven and all it is made up to be, it's not something I'm not keen to go to such a place. So what are your thoughts about heaven?
When I was a believer, I was very excited about it. For one thing, the description of heaven does talk about that there'll be the feast of the bridegroom, and I like cooking, and so I was looking forward to being able to cook in heaven. I really enjoy eating good food. And I was thinking, you know, the food in heaven is going to be literally out of this world. It's going to be absolutely fabulous, and nobody's going to get fat from eating it. And so I was looking forward to that. The Bible describes there being a crystal sea in heaven. I love swimming. I love water. And so one thing I was really looking forward to was being able to swim in the crystal sea. I once went scuba diving in Hawaii, and it was one of the most bizarre experiences of my life because the water was so crystal clear.
Mm.
I looked up and I saw the boat that we had dove from. And normally when I'm 40 feet down, I can't see the boat over me. The visibility is not that good. But when I saw the boat crystal clear above me, I thought, oh, I must only be about 10 feet down. And then I looked at my dive meter. I was 90 feet down. And so this is what it's going to be like in the crystal sea. And I won't have to breathe. I don't need scuba gear. I can swim as far as I want underwater. And that to me was exciting. Another thing, I loved going to church. I really did. And the idea for me of going to a worship service every day, to me, that was heaven. I really did look forward to that. And I thought that would be great. In fact, that actually was a problem for me in Christianity because I wanted to go to heaven so badly that anytime I went to a funeral, I was jealous of the dead person. I said, why is that person dead and not me? I want to be dead. But now that I'm no longer a believer, I don't think heaven is real. It never was. And I'm glad I didn't die because I would have wasted my entire life, the only life that I've got. And that's why I have the theme, live your life, because I spent so many years trying to please a God, trying to get ready for a life that doesn't exist, that I missed the only life that I had. And I wish I could go back and live this life without God so that I could see the world for what it is instead of, having those blinders on and trying to only see those things that agree with God. And now that I understand there is no heaven. When you die, that's it. It's over. This is all you're going to get. So live it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And Godless Granny.
Here's something funny. Yesterday, it was either yesterday or this morning, I got into a conversation with someone that told me that I don't really believe that. Because he asked me, what do I believe about the afterlife? And I said, there is no afterlife. This is it. This is all we've got. He said, you can't believe that. Nobody believes that. The only people who say that are lying.
Yeah,
okay.
but if you say that there is an afterlife, prove it.
Mm-hmm.
How can they prove it?
Well, here's one of the things that I've gotten on to just in the last few months. I started thinking about this right around Easter time, is the whole idea of the ascension makes absolutely no sense. Because if heaven is a physical place, then we should be able to find it with a telescope or a spaceship. And if Jesus died and, after he rose, he ascended bodily into heaven, then heaven has to be a physical place if there's a physical body of Jesus there. And if Jesus ascended into space, he died again, unless God made him a spaceship. And if Jesus didn't ascend bodily, if it was just his spirit that went to heaven, then we should have the body here. Christians like to say there's no body because Jesus arose bodily into heaven. Well, then where's the body?
Exactly.
It's floating out in space somewhere.
Exactly. I think when you look at the Bible stories, a lot of those stories were an afterthought. A lot of the stories were they just thought, okay, let's add this here. Let's include that there. They didn't think these things through. They didn't quite I don't think most of the Bible writers saw a day when skeptics would dig and dig and dig. I think they just thought we can pull a wool over these people's eyes. They'll believe it anyway. And also, I watched something, was it yesterday? I watched something, and the person it was a video, and they said the Bible, the books of the Bible were never designed to be written in a Bible. These were people's experiences, there were letters, there were, you know, some other persons came along many years later and decided to put those individual books
Mm-hmm.
and made it the manual for Christianity. Those books were never designed for what it is being used today. So
Mm-hmm.
when I heard that, I thought, now it makes sense. Now it makes sense. I mean, look at Paul's letters. Paul was writing to the church in Corinthians. They were having arguments in church, and Paul is trying to address their arguments. And for some reason, Christians translate that to mean Paul was talking to me and talking to you. You know,
Mm-hmm.
when that was not the goal. That was not, you know, look at a story when Jesus told the disciples that some of you will not see death and the Son of Man will return.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know, and now 2000 plus years later, some Christians say it's me. You know, some of us will not. No, Jesus was talking to the disciples.
Mm-hmm.
That was one of the times when Jesus lied because he's never come back, has he? He hasn't come back.
Yeah, but if you read that passage carefully, it does say if this person isn't, if John isn't going to die before I come back, what is that to you? He doesn't actually say I will be back before he dies. He says if I come back before he dies, what is that to you? And that's why I never really saw a contradiction there.
Okay.
But you know, you bring up a point that was always something that kind of stuck in my craw as a believer. And that was, I asked several pastors, how did we get our canon? How was it determined which books belong in the Bible?
Yes.
And I could never
question.
get a satisfactory answer. Most pastors just blew me off. They'd tell me, you know, I don't have time for that. They ignored me completely. They'd say, go read something on church history. But I never got a satisfactory answer to that question. By the way, Dean, I actually made a video on Spaceship Jesus. If you want to go look for it on my channel.
Spaceship Jesus.
Yeah. And it's that one features Pale Blue Mama.
Nice.
I got Pale Blue Mama, who is an astrophysicist, to talk about what would have happened to Jesus in space if he had bodily ascended into heaven. But anyway, getting back to my story,
you probably would have been knocked by a what are those things called in space?
a meteorite.
Huh?
A meteorite.
Yes, you'd have been knocked by a meteorite.
Actually, she talked about how his body would have completely bloated because the moisture cells in your body expand in let's see, she said it's extremely cold. I'd have to go back and watch the video to see exactly, but I remember, you know, her talking about exactly how he would have died and how he would have died within seconds of I did ask about him being able to have enough energy to leave the atmosphere, and she said since it's just the weight of a single man, it actually wouldn't take anywhere near as much energy as it does to launch a rocket. But anyway, yeah, that was an interesting conversation. But anyway, getting back to my story about the Bible. So yeah, after I was an atheist, I mentioned that to a friend of mine who was still a believer. You know, I'd asked a number of pastors and could never get a satisfactory answer. And she said, well, maybe that's because there isn't one. And at the time that she said that, no, I know she said, maybe they just weren't giving you the answer that you wanted. And at the time I got a little angry at her answer because I thought that she was implying that I was demanding something that you know, that God wasn't willing to give or whatever. But I realized later, no, she actually was right, that they couldn't give me a satisfactory answer because there was no satisfactory answer. And I think most of the pastors knew that from going to seminary, that when you know the story of how we got our Bible and how random it was in determining which books were in and which books were not, it can really cause you to lose your faith. And so I think they were intentionally covering it up.
Absolutely, absolutely. I've also asked the question about the canonization of the Bible, and I was told, oh, that's what the Council of Nicaea was all about, and that was, the whole agenda was to canonize the Bible.
What was always presented to me as a believer was that the Christians were all pretty much all using these books. And when the Council of Nicene got together, that what they did was they pretty much just gave authorization to what people were already doing, because Christians were already in unity and in agreement that this is what the Bible was. So that's what I was told, but no, that's not true at all.
Wow, fantastic. So, I think we've gone an hour and a few minutes. So if anybody has any questions for Godless Granny, now is your time to ask.
While we're waiting for any questions that might come up, one other thing I wanted to mention was when I became an unbeliever and when I first started watching Apologia and Vice Rhino, I would see them debunking what I considered to be crackpots, people that were on the fringes, people that I would never have taken seriously as a believer. And I said to Apologia, I'd really like to see you take on the more serious theologians. And I have seen him do that a number of times. And I took a shot at it myself, and I was shocked at how easy it was. One of my earliest videos, I did a response to both John Piper and Ravi Zacharias, two people that I had thought were giants of the faith, two people that I thought were just so profoundly intelligent when I was a believer. And I was just shocked as an atheist at how easy it was to deconstruct what they were teaching.
I find the same thing too. I feel like when you take that religious lens off, you can see the things that they're trying to concoct and how they deliberately hide things, how they try to manipulate people with their words, and how they brainwash people. I feel like you can see it easier. It becomes clearer for some reason. So yes, let's see if there are any questions.
And Ricardo Oliveira's right. It was the Council of Trent. Nicaea had something to do with it, but I don't remember. I'm not as good on church history as I am on the actual, what's in the Bible.
Okay, let's see if there are any questions. That's a Christian. He's a Christian. He used to be a Christian.
That's okay.
I
have a response to that, because I saw an atheist that jokingly asked on Twitter, "Some Christian told me to have a blessed day. How can I have a blessed day?" Well, Ken Ham accused Shannon Q of being a sexual humanist. So Shannon Q decided to run with that, and she began the religion of sexual humanism, and she is the high priestess. And she offered to ordain anyone that wanted to be ordained.
I want to be ordained.
Yeah,
yes.
So I did. Well, at the time she was running a fundraiser to raise money for LGBTQ youth to get counseling in Ken Ham's name. And so I made a donation and I asked her to ordain me as the Deaconess of Doubt. You could tell I love alliteration, and she did. So I am officially the deaconess of doubt in the religion of sexual humanism. So when I
Oh,
encountered this guy
nice.
asking how he, as an atheist, could have a blessed day, I said, as the deaconess of doubt, in the name of Hymen, I hereby bless your day. You may now have a blessed day.
Oh, amen to that. Amen to that. Oh my goodness. Oh, that was funny. So I'm just checking to see if there's any I'm kind of scared of not being well versed enough or just playing crafty enough to go toe to toe with many apologies. Yeah.
I get that. I get that. There
Yeah.
are some people that I'm afraid to go toe to toe with, mostly because I'm afraid they're going to bring up science, and I don't know the science.
All right, Mark, thank you. Thanks for coming. Mark is down he's in I think Australia, New Zealand or Australia. One of those. So his time zone, he's way past his bedtime
I was
now.
going to say, it
And
must be about 3 a.m. there.
I know, so he definitely needs to go. Am I right in saying that's where he's from? Yeah. Anyways, on a final note, if you had a chance to speak to, oh, okay, there's a question for you. Won't take many questions. Yes, this one here. Can Granny expound on the importance of doubt and skepticism?
Obviously, it's extremely important because one of the things that I did as a believer is I made sure that I only read those things that confirmed my belief. Anything that would challenge my beliefs, I simply ignored. One of the things that I did as a believer was I started a church library. We had, there was a church that I was at that we didn't have a church library, and I started a library from scratch. And I spent 5 years building that library. And I was very careful that the books that went into the library had to agree with our statement of faith. And if it didn't agree, it didn't come in the library. And when the only thing you look at is things that agree with you, then you don't see those things that show your faith for being, the inconsistent and incoherent thing that it is.
So most definitely. I mean, I would say doubt everything you're told.
Mhm.
Doubt. Just that should be the first thing.
There are certain times when we don't doubt. I mean, like the
Okay.
pandemic.
Right.
The doctors that have the degrees and have put in the study and are telling us the vaccine is safe, I don't doubt that. They've put in the work that they can be trusted. So it's a matter of also looking at who's telling you the information and can they be trusted.
True. I mean, there are some things that are very obvious. They're very obvious, and for things like that, like with the pandemic. I mean, I've had my vaccines. I'm good. Have had them months ago, and it was a no-brainer for me. There was never a point where I ever thought I would not take the vaccine. There was just never a point because I mean, I've taken my children to have vaccines, and I never asked once what was in the vaccine. Never asked once.
Or if there was a microchip in it.
Never asked.
Or if it would affect their fertility.
Exactly. And now we can clearly see there's a pandemic that is ravishing the world. And, people have, they've gone all out to make a vaccine available. And now I'm going to start worrying about a microchip or magnetic, I've heard all sorts of things. I mean, I've heard people say, oh, they're trying to kill Black people. Have you not noticed that Black people what are dying? Oh, they're trying to kill Black people. Where do you even begin? So let me just have a look if there's any more questions. And I think we should be. Oh, someone said, it was Jerome. It was Jerome that asked the question about the book in numeracy, mathematical illiteracy and its consequences. Is that the correct book?
Yes, that is the correct book.
That is the correct book. Okay. Okay. I think there are no questions for now. So on a final note, some of the videos that I put out on my channel are just some of the crazy things people believe. And there are people who believe this stuff. There are people who they live, they thrive, they survive believing this stuff. And I feel like it just takes just one thing someone will say to make them stop and ask the question. So if you had a chance to speak to, let's say, someone who went to a church where the pastor for some reason has to put his foot on the member's head. I've got a video like that. The pastor has his leg on this person's head.
He has a holy foot.
If you had the chance to speak to people that believe these crazy beliefs, what would you say to them? Or what would you, how would you approach them and make them just stop to think?
I think I would ask them, okay, why do you think that this is the way that God works? There's nothing in the Bible that says that this is how God works. There's no stories of Jesus or the disciples or anyone else working this way. So why do you think that this is the way that God wants them to do it? And what is it that God is accomplishing? Is the Holy Spirit coming through this guy's foot into somebody's head? And why is foot? I mean, the Bible tells you to anoint with oil, to lay on holy hands. It never says anything about laying on a holy foot. I would just really question what's behind the belief. What's the reason for it?
Great, thank you. And yeah, it's been an interesting conversation with you. Thank you for sharing your story on how you came out of religion, and thank you for being a representation and just being on YouTube. You know, when you look on YouTube, just type Jesus and see how many millions and millions of videos of, you know, believers, apologists doing their thing. And, you know, we need more people like yourself. It was a video that I watched. Someone said, you know, if you're an atheist or a skeptic, you know, make videos, put them out. Even if you're not good enough, even if you have no clue, just your words are good enough. You know, make people just tell your story, be a representation. And, you know, I had no clue about how all this live streams work, OBS. I had absolutely no clue. But I'm here today, Godless Granny. I've got over 600 subscribers. And, you know, I've only just got started. And the plan is to carry on speaking and to carry on engaging in these conversations, engaging in, you know, just making people understand the reasons why some of the beliefs that they hold on to make no sense at all. So thank you very, very much for what you do. And before you go, do you have any live streams coming up that we should look out for? Or do you have, is there something you would like to share about what's going on your channel? I know you've got one right now, which I'm halfway through. I'm not done with that video, and it's about evolution. And that's something I need to go and check out because I need to finish it. Because when I was a Christian, we were told we were taught that evolution was, not something you engaged in as a Christian. So, new things you learn. And I will be back on your channel later on. So is there anything you would like to tell us coming? And if someone can put Granny's link in the chat, I will appreciate that. So if you're not signed up to Godless Granny, please do sign up to her. She's doing amazing work on YouTube.
First, I want to say thank you for having me. It has been an absolute pleasure. This has been a very enjoyable conversation. And I want to say thank you to all the people in your audience. They have been a wonderful audience, and I really appreciate them as well. I see a lot of my friends, and I see a lot of new friends there too. As far as what I have coming up on my channel, I have a produced video that's almost finished. I've got about 10 more minutes of editing, and it takes me about an hour to do 5 minutes of editing. So, I'll be finished with that in just a couple more hours, and then it'll be released to my patrons tomorrow, and then I'll make it public on Saturday. And that is a response to a chapter of Answers News. Answers News did about 4 stories. When I wrote the script for that one, I finished the second story and I had 9 pages of script. I went, oh my gosh, I need to stop. That's the one problem I have. When I start writing, I have a hard time stopping. And so I just ended with a quick comment on a third story, and I've got 45 minutes of video, and I'm only responding to about 15 minutes of the video that they did. But they got into 2 topics that I'm very passionate about. One was transgender rights. I have a son that is trans. And so when they start spouting misinformation about transgender people, you're going to get a response from me. And the second was the Texas abortion law, because the new Texas abortion law is one horrendous piece of legislation. It is a legal nightmare. And the people on the AIG panel, of course, had no clue what they were talking about when they were talking about it. So that was interesting. And then on Wednesday, Otangelo is coming to my channel. Otangelo is a believer,
nice.
And we are going to debate. Well, actually, it's not really a debate; it's really a conversation. But we're going to discuss: was there a worldwide flood? And we're going to do this as kind of a half debate, half conversation. We're each going to present an opening argument, but then after the opening arguments, we're just going to have a conversation about, what we opened with, rather than a back and forth, rebuttal and so forth. I think that works for a little better style. So that's what I have coming up on Wednesday.
So on Wednesday, today's Thursday, so in 6 days. The trouble with the time difference is when you do your videos, it's bedtime over here, so I can't really. But I look forward to watching. The moment I get up and I can watch the video, I'm always there straight away. Just click on and I watch. So guys, please look out for Otangelo. He's something. And listen, Godless Granny, I'm looking forward to that conversation with Otangelo. I'm definitely looking forward to that.
I'd like to answer Dr. Osiris's question. He said, I could have sworn I had you on Discord. Did you delete your account or something? Here's where you're going to see what an old fart I really am, which is I went on Discord and I created an account, but I couldn't figure out how to use it. I don't understand how to talk on Discord, and so I gave up. I don't know if I have an account on Discord or not, but I know I tried to use it and I couldn't figure it out.
Godless Granny, if you're an old fat, I'm a semi-old fat, because I get on Discord. There are too many things going on. There's so many things, and I have no clue what's what. I just abandon ship. I'm out of there. I've got no clue. So I've got Discord, but I never really, I think I've only engaged with people twice or three times. Yeah, that is um yeah, a bit of tea and Danish. Their Discord. Yes, yes. I've engaged with them. I'm on other people's a couple other people's Discord, but I just go in there. I'm not sure what I'm supposed to be doing. But yeah, there you go. Yeah, never mind. So guys, please sign up to Godless Granny. Oh, someone said, Dr. Cyrus says, no worries, Godless Granny. Discord is a pain in the back anyway. Shroud of Turin, yes, that's going to be another bad night of sleep. Oh God. Othangelo and his Shroud of Turin, yes.
But
So
we're not going to talk about Shroud. We're going to talk about Noah's Ark.
somehow he might bring that up for some reason. He just likes his Shroud of Turin. Okay, so yeah, I look forward to that. So Godless Granny, thank you, appreciate you coming, and for everyone who's come to watch and to partake, thank you all. And Godless Granny, we will have you back on my channel to talk about something else. We'll discuss about that, and hopefully in the near future we'll have you back. But thank you very much for your time, and yeah, guys, I appreciate you all. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon, night, morning, noon, wherever you are. And yes, look out for us. Don't forget to sign up. And if you are not subscribed to my channel and to Godless Granny's channel, make sure you do so. Like the videos, subscribe, do the YouTube thing. So yes, thank you all. And I'm just looking at the comments to see if there was anything I have missed. Okay, all right, that's it. Okay, guys, thank you all. And yeah, that's it from us. So be good without God. It's possible. You can do it. We are good without God. We're living life without religion, and we're good people. So thank you all, and see you all very soon again. Bye. Bye, everyone.
Live your
Bye.
life.
Bye.